Aren't banks the nicest buildings in the nicest parts of town with the best kept grounds? Who pays for that? Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel. My name is Jesse Durham. For today's episode, we're going to discuss the freedoms of IBC, this infinite banking concept, this concept of becoming your own banker as described in R. Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker. It brings a lot of freedoms, and it's not by happenstance that we get to enjoy the opportunity to become our own banker. I'd like to start by sharing a quick excerpt, and then we'll come back for more from, this is a piece written by Jackson Pemberton, written back in 1976, so almost 50 years ago now. Amazing. And to think that that was 200 years after the declaration of our independence. See, this is what brings me to discuss the freedoms of IBC. We're coming up on July 4th, Independence Day 2022, and I've been thinking about the country and capitalism and the free market and the government and our rights and the Constitution, and of course infinite banking. I always have this infinite banking lens, and I began to really think and appreciate and dwell on the freedoms that IBC provides us. Anyway, so Jackson Pemberton had written something that had some really good points in it, and I'll read the whole excerpt, I believe, here in just a second. But there was one line where he said, "And you seek for a remedy while it stares you in the face." And you seek for a remedy while it stares you in the face. That spoke to me in such a big way. When I was reading that excerpt, and I thought many thoughts, but when I got to that part, I thought about that question that I first asked to open up this episode. Aren't banks the nicest buildings in the nicest parts of town, in every town, all over, with the best kept grounds, etc.? Yes. Why, yes, they are. And that stares us in our face. I mean, they're on every nice town corner that we pass by. And we direct deposit our funds there because that's just the system that we've literally been born into. We direct deposit every dollar of income right into those conventional banks, and that stares us right in the face. And it's a case, I believe, of not seeing the forest for the trees. Well, we're brought into this system, and this idea of becoming your own banker then therefore is so revolutionary. It's the paradigm shift that Nash described. And Nash wrote his book, Becoming Your Own Banker, in 2000. We're 22 years along the line now. And of course, whole life insurance had existed for hundreds of years. But when he wrote his book describing to us what we could actually do with whole life insurance, he said that it was going to be a paradigm shift to consider such a thing, becoming your own banker. But the banking function exists. And I guess we'll get to that. But it was staring us in the face. Now, that excerpt was talking about some other things, but again, Nash put it in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker. That was on page 32. It begins on 31, but the part that I read right there is on page 32. So let's get to these freedoms of infinite banking. Let me point out firstly that mutual life insurance companies don't just exist anywhere. Okay, I know that there are companies in Canada, and of course right now I'm wanting to point out that because of what America is, a capitalist country, or the best known version of a capitalist country in the world, definitely the most free country in the world. I know people hold differing opinions. That's okay. They can say what they want on their channels and venues as well. But the most free country that there is. And mutual companies do not exist just anywhere, and there's a reason for that. Now think about it. It is a mutual life insurance company, meaning that a policy owner is inherently part owner of that mutual insurance company. Therefore, you get to participate in the overall performance of a company in a given year, and that's represented to us in the form of a dividend. And of course, for the infinite banking purpose, let me point out here that what I promote most is that we use a dividend to buy paid up additional insurance for lots of good reasons. And Nash did the same in his book, but the whole concept of life insurance has been around for a couple of 100 years. And these mutual life insurance companies, wherein we can be part owners of these companies, they don't exist just anywhere. Okay? The environment that we have here in the United States of America does not only allow that, and there are states laws and requirements and such over insurance. So we're a land of laws for sure. Whether good or bad, we are a land of laws, and insurance is regulated, but whole life insurance has existed for well over 200 years. Well, by being part owners in these companies, we get to enjoy privately contracting. So me as an individual, from the time that I bought my first life insurance policy with a mutual company, I was privately contracting with that company to pay a predetermined amount of premiums, and there's flexibility in that, but a predetermined amount of premiums to be the owner of that policy if they would provide me with such a unilateral contract. Now, when I pay the premiums that I've contracted to pay, that I chose, all of the other impetus is on the insurance company to perform, to provide the death benefit that is guaranteed, to provide access to capital via policy loans or policy withdrawals, and everything else that's in that unilateral contract. The impetus is on the insurance company at that point to perform all of that. And we have privately contracted with each other. I've submitted myself through underwriting to see if I would get approved for such a policy. The insurance company will make an offer to me, and that unilateral contract is legally binding. And what I'm trying to point out is that doesn't just happen anywhere. And I'm not married to any one company. I own multiple policies with multiple companies. Mutual life insurance companies that pay dividends. But that doesn't just occur anywhere in the world. So it's something that I'm very, very thankful of, is what I'm pointing out. And in looking at a macro level, and looking with a 30,000 foot view at this position of being my own banker, there's a lot that goes into that at that macro level. We are deciding to voluntarily mutually benefit each other in this environment. The insurance company can count on a steady stream of premium payments from me, predetermined premium payments. And then, of course, I can rely on all of the contractual rights that I possess as the owner of that policy and part owner of that company. The contractual rights that I have to access capital and to warehouse capital, and to have a guaranteed death benefit permanently. We have voluntarily contracted with each other. And to be sure, the government, big banks, Wall Street, they do not want us to be free. In thinking and talking about this concept of freedom and the level of freedom that we can have, big banks do not want us to be free. For sure, they want us to be beholden to them. Consider this. Would banks exist if we did not make our deposits there? No. Now, I'm not saying don't have a checking account, don't have a savings account. I have those accounts. But what I'm saying is what Nash said. Well, don't do business with banks. Don't do business with banks. Put yourself in the position to become your own banker so that you own an entity wherein you can amass capital, and then you have the control to be able to deploy that capital for whatever it is that you want to be able to do. And while that capital is deployed and employed with whatever task it is, you also have the ability, because you own and control that flow of capital and the entity itself, you can then recapture the principal You can recapture interest that otherwise would have gone to the big banks. You can recapture any profits from whatever endeavor you're undertaking. And you own this system. You control this system. This is your own privatized banking system. And that's not going to please the big banks, to be sure. But that's the whole idea, is that you can become your own banker. Now, again, I've already talked about Nash having written the book. R. Nelson Nash, in 2000, wrote the book about the things that he had already been doing for some time and speaking about for some time, which is a really interesting thought. R. Nelson Nash, he was a capitalist. He was a free-thinking businessman. He had a background in forestry, had a background in Austrian economics for decades. He studied Austrian economics and decades in life insurance as well. Now, he spoke, before he wrote the book, he spoke to his clients and friends and family and whatnot about this idea of becoming your own banker before he codified that in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker. And then he wrote the book. And I just had a moment when I was preparing for this episode where I was thinking about, he exercised constitutionally protected rights. He exercised constitutionally protected rights to begin this grassroots movement of empowering people, educating people to become their own bankers. He leveraged constitutional rights, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, to be able to promote this idea that you could become your own banker. And because he did that decades ago, and I never had the benefit of meeting Nash personally, in person myself, and I certainly wish that I could have, but I've been practicing this idea now personally for several years, and I've been professionally helping other people do that same for going on a couple of years now. And those constitutional, and there are certainly individuals, and we'll get to this excerpt in a second, but even this past week, I've heard folks in well-known governmental positions talking about the fluidity of the Constitution and the Constitution not being absolute. So people obviously have different ideas about that. But what I'm saying is, I'm certainly thankful for all of the freedoms that we enjoy that allow me to live in the country that I do, that allow me to voluntarily contract with other private entities where we can mutually benefit each other, and that I can own these private assets, that I have the freedom to own private assets where I'm not beholden to others. And that is because of the efforts of another free man who decided to exercise his rights of writing and speaking, and it's so greatly to my benefit and to your benefit. You know, I hope that to our clients that I'm communicating well the thankfulness that I have for all of these different freedoms that we enjoy. And if you're a prospective client and that means something to you, I'm very thankful for that as well. You know, and when we get to the individual, when we get to you, you're free to learn. You are free to learn or not. And that would speak to Nash's the arrival syndrome, the idea of, well, I already know, I don't need, so I've personally decided to be a perpetual student. I'm going to continue to learn until I cannot anymore. So that'll be always. And you as the individual, you're free to pick your professional who you would like to do business with in all capacities. But of course, in this capacity of being on a journey of becoming your own banker, you're free to choose a professional that you want to work with. Just as I'm free to choose who I want to work with. And you're free to determine what amount of premium you would like to pay, who you would like to be the beneficiary or beneficiaries, what kind of legacy you would like to leave behind, and not just money, not just a death benefit, which it can't be overstated. A tax-free transfer of wealth from one generation to another, or from one person to an entity, a nonprofit, perhaps a church or a nonprofit of your choice. That's an amazing gift. It's a beautiful gift. The idea of giving from yourself to others, I mean, that certainly speaks at this time of, independence. Many, many other people before me have given all, maybe even given all that they had to give for me to be able to enjoy the rights and the freedoms that I now enjoy. And I'm so very thankful. But you as the individual get to choose what kind of legacy you're going to leave behind. And you can even choose, just as Nash did, to where you're going to graduate. And he would even say live and in front of folks. And if you want to talk about that, the life that happens after this one, well, then that would be even a better conversation. So as much as I like talking about IBC, we could talk about that as well. But let me get to this excerpt from Jackson Pemberton's writing in 1976, and it was entitled A New Message on the Constitution. And what he was doing was he was writing from the perspective of the Founding Fathers, looking at America at the time of the writing in 1976. But in spite of all our careful effort, we knew that it was not sufficient to merely launch the ship of state correctly. It needed to be tended by an alert, informed, and jealous citizenry. But history, like nature, travels in cycles. Both liberty and oppression contain the seeds of their own destruction. Our success has brought the security which put you to sleep. Now, basking in the dimming brilliance of the lights of liberty, you have been neither vigilant nor informed, and only recently have you begun to realize the correctness of your rising jealousy for your rights. Let those feelings of jealousy well up within you and cause you to alert yourselves to your true condition. Your executives have taken upon themselves to form foreign alliances and to make domestic regulations without proper authority. They have violated your most fundamental law. Your judiciary has ignored the amending process and altered the meaning and intent of the Constitution they were sworn to defend. They have betrayed your most fundamental law. Your Congress has been watchful, yet not of the encroachments of the other two branches, but for opportunity to gain influence by purchasing your favor with your own money. They have ignored your most fundamental law. And you seek for a remedy while it stares you in the face. You have lost the vision of your most fundamental law. Let me show you. You call the National Charter the Constitution of the United States, and that simple phrase contains both the totality of your plight and the seeds of your salvation, for in those 6 words you reveal your feeling that both you and your law are subject to your government. You are not the slave of government at all, but because you think so, you may as well be. Nay, the Constitution is your servant and the master of your government. It is not the Constitution of the United States. It is the Constitution of the people and for the United States. It is not only the law by which you are governed, it is the law by which you may govern your government. It is not the law by which high-handed politicians may impose their collective will upon you. It is for you to oppose it upon them. It does not belong to the government. It belongs to you. It is yours. It is yours to enforce upon your government. It is yours to read to those self-wise do-gooders. And if you will hold it high in your hand, they will quail and flee before it like the cowardly knaves they are. While those who are your true friends will rejoice in your new commitment. I like reading, so I don't know how much that did for you if you're just listening. Maybe it did a little bit more if you're seeing me on video right now. But again, that was page 31 and page 32 in R. Nelson Nash's first book, Becoming Your Own Banker. What I would encourage everyone is to consider our freedoms, consider how we have them, consider how we may have been negligent in being vigilant about maintaining them, exercising them, from a macro level all the way down to a micro level. Okay, this has been a different kind of an episode, perhaps. I feel strongly, you could probably suppose or infer that I feel strongly about many things And I'm not trying to cause any sort of division. I think that the right people will hear this in the right way. And, I'm just in charge of sharing the seed that I have to share. So for those that also appreciate the freedoms both of this country, the freedoms that we can have by doing business privately, voluntarily with others, all the way down to those that are embracing and pursuing and implementing this idea of becoming your own banker, I just want to encourage you on your way. I'm very thankful for each one of you, our clients, those that we get to have conversations with, those that we are just cheerleading on their way. And I'm very grateful for this country and this time and this opportunity. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. I encourage you to get back in Nash's works. And if you're vetting this idea of becoming your own banker, let's have a phone conversation. Send us an email. And I look forward to having those conversations. So to reach us, you can call 828-817-4223, or you can email durhamtalents@gmail.com. This has been a great pleasure for me. I look forward to our next conversation. Have a great day. Take care.
Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel. My name is Jesse Durham.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Hiya. Oh my goodness. Lauren, can you hear me? Okay. Could you ask them to quit the beating, banging, and the stomping? Oh, Purple Mountain Majesty.